What is well-being? According to Canadians, it is defined as the presence of the highest possible quality of life through a wide range of domains.
My name's Hal Turner. I'm the interim CEO and president of Manitoba Hydro. Manitoba Hydro is an electric and natural gas utility in Manitoba. We have over 600,000 electric customers and over 300,000 natural gas customers. Our job is to make sure that we have affordable, reliable electricity to help Manitobans power their lives and their businesses. So Manitoba Hydro provides, I think, just a little over 6,000 megawatts of installed generation capacity. 97% of the electricity on an average year, because we are a hydroelectric utility. So last year we had a drought, so that means there's less. Our fuel is water, and so there's less fuel for our generating stations. The year before, 2022, we had high water, and so there was lots of hydroelectricity generated. But on an average year, about 97% of the electricity generated in Manitoba comes from hydroelectric, so that's clean, renewable electricity. About 2% of the electricity comes from wind. So there are 2 wind farms located in southern Manitoba that Manitoba Hydro buys their output. And then about 1% of our electricity comes from natural gas. Well, it was quite an interesting report, right? And so a couple of things stood out to me. One, when I wear my Manitoba Hydro hat, is what a fortunate position we are in Manitoba. Manitobans have made huge investments in clean, renewable electricity. And, when we're talking about climate change and the things we need to do to arrest climate change, we're really well positioned. So that really stood out to me. The other thing is I found it really interesting on how we tried to measure well-being, right? And so it was very thought-provoking, and it made you think about things a little bit differently. And so I'm an engineer by trade, and what I'm curious is how it will evolve over time, right? Like when I was reading it and thinking it started in 1994, part of me thought, well, it definitely has a bit of a 1994 lens on what makes up well-being, right? And how will the measures evolve over time? I thought that was quite interesting, and I think it'll be interesting to follow this as we go forward. Things like, the percentage of or the amount of farmland used for agriculture, right? Well, you think about how much our population has grown since 1994, and yet we're still feeding everybody for the most part, right? So agriculture is getting much more efficient and effective. So is the amount of land dedicated to agriculture, is that the right measure, right? Or when you look in the electricity space, Manitoba Hydro did its integrated resource plan. We published our first integrated resource plan last July. And as we as the world and Canada and Manitoba look to decarbonize our lives, so, replace our use of fossil fuels, electricity is going to be a bigger and bigger part of people's energy uses. We may need to double or triple the size of the electricity grid. And so seeing things like, the percentage of people in the workforce who have a university education and see how that's changed is encouraging. But we also need skilled labor and people in trades, right? And so that, is not particular, or that measure isn't in the report. But I know as, utilities across Canada are contemplating how are we going to grow our systems. Skilled labor is one of those things that we really worry about and want to make sure there's plenty of it, right? So I remember, 1994 is not that long after I graduated university, and I can remember the focus of my parents, and friends that I went to school with, go get a university education. But I think at times to the detriment of some of the skilled trades out there. So it'll be really interesting to see how that evolves going forward. I'm an optimist by nature, right? So I tend to focus on some of the positive things. And so there were, as from a Manitoba perspective or a Manitoba Hydro perspective, I'm proud to see the part we played in growing our energy resources in the province. We've invested in lots of new, clean, renewable electricity generation since the mid-90s. Limestone, Wisquatam, and Kiosk all came online, and we've consistently reduced our use of fossil fuels. So I think since 2018 was when we retired our last coal unit. We do have some natural gas generating stations in Brandon, but we primarily use those in times of emergency or drought, so we don't run them very often. So I was very encouraged by that. I was also really encouraged to see how Manitobans have been reducing their reducing their energy consumption, right? And so prior to, I think, 2014, Manitoba Hydro operated our Power Smart program. And then after that, we've been working very closely in big support of Efficiency Manitoba. And I think it's been really positive to see the impacts we've had. One of the things that I guess one of the places where I would be a little bit concerned is I think we can do more when it comes to energy efficiency, right? And so, Manitoba has some of the lowest electricity rates in Canada. I think we have the second lowest rates. And so one of the challenges with that is the business case around energy efficiency. And so as we look to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, one of the things that's going to be most challenging in Manitoba is the heating of our homes and our businesses, right? And so I think energy efficiency needs to be a principle that we really pursue as we go forward. And we look at things like building codes and standards and really look to strengthen those and be leaders in energy efficiency. Because as everybody knows who lives in Manitoba, we have long, cold winters, right? And when I think about our journey towards net zero, I think heating of our homes and businesses is going to be the most challenging. And I think increased energy efficiency in our buildings and homes is going to be really key. So things we can do to increase the efficiency of our homes is we can look at the envelope of the home, right? So making sure that we have energy efficient windows, investing in insulation is really important, right? Making sure the envelope of the building is as airtight as possible, and well insulated means you need least amount of energy to heat that home. And then when we're looking at making choices for how we heat our homes, if you're going to use natural gas, for example, a high efficiency natural gas furnace. There's been a lot of talk in the news recently about heat pumps, and there's an air source heat pump and a ground source heat pump. Those can be attractive heating options for homeowners, and which can help them reduce their energy bills, their monthly energy bills. So those are some of the things that we can do. Obviously, things like programmable thermostats, right? So we're turn down the heat when it's cold, or in the evenings and overnight. More and more appliances are smart, so being conscious about when we use electricity. Manitoba is a winter peaking province, so that means the demand for electricity is the highest in the winter. Typically, that high times of use are early in the morning before people go to work and school, and then right after work, 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening when people get home from work or school, right? So other things that Manitobans can do is think about when they use their energy, right? So if you can do things like run your dishwasher later at night or do your laundry, if you happen to have an EV, try and avoid those peak times of the day for charging. All of those things will minimize the growth of the peak, which means it will minimize the amount of generation resources we need in this province, which means we have to invest less, which means we have to recover less money from our customers. So doing those things will also keep rates lower and bills more affordable for customers. Well, one thing, I think I talked a little bit about generation. The other thing I think Manitobans should know about is how seriously Manitoba Hydro takes reliability. So in the last 10 years, for example, we built a project we call Bipole 3. So it's a transmission line from northern Manitoba to southern Manitoba. So we did that to increase reliability, as well as a transmission line we built between Manitoba and Minnesota called the Manitoba-Minnesota Transmission Project. Both of those things will improve reliability and help ensure that the lights stay on, regardless of what happens with weather or, people see climate change and you see extreme events. And so one of our tagline is energy for life, right? So we want to make sure we provide energy for Manitobans today and tomorrow, but also regardless of what's happening outside, and try and make sure that's reliable. So I think Manitobans should be aware of that. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, Manitobans should be really proud of how clean our electricity grid is. It's one of the cleanest grids in North America and the world, and we should be very proud of that. And it positions us well as we, as a society, try and tackle climate change. Two things jump to mind, right? So one, I talked earlier about, our mission is to provide energy for life, right? So we provide low cost, affordable, green, renewable energy for Manitobans. We serve all of Manitoba. So that means, whether you're at school, if you happen to be in a hospital, you're at home, we make sure that energy is there 24 hours a day whenever our customers need it. And we also make sure that energy is affordable, which contributes to well-being. The second thing that jumps to mind is, there's over 5,400 of us, and we work hard to make sure that the demographics of Manitoba Hydro represent or are reflective of the demographics of Manitoba. So, we have 5,400 good paying jobs for Manitobans. We're really proud of things like we have flexible start times, right? So having that ability to adjust when you work to best suit your lifestyle, that's been something we've been doing for decades. We have options for remote work. We've been voted a Manitoba top employer, one of Canada's top employers, one of Canada's greenest employers, as well as a great place from a diversity perspective, a diversity employer. One of the things that I'm really proud of is the percent of Indigenous employees we have, right? And so I think we're well over 20% Indigenous employees overall, but more importantly in northern Manitoba, where the majority of our electricity is generated, we have over 40% of our workforce being Indigenous. And so that's something we're all really proud of.